My boyfriend refused to post photos of us online until his other girlfriend tagged me by accident. My boyfriend of 2 years had never once posted a photo of me on his Instagram, not on my birthday, not on Valentine's Day, not even when we went to Cancun and the sunset looked like something out of a screensaver. I told myself he just wasn't a social media person. Then a woman named Deja Washington tagged us both in a photo from his cousin's wedding, and I found out exactly why. I want to start from the beginning because I think the beginning is important, not because it was dramatic, actually the opposite. The beginning was so normal, so unremarkable that I genuinely could not have prepared for where it ended. I'm Simone, I'm 28. I work in HR at a mid-sized logistics company in Charlotte, North Carolina. I have 2 close friends, a plant collection that's getting out of hand, and until 8 months ago I had a boyfriend named Darius Wells, who I thought was the most straightforward man I'd ever dated. That last part is funny to me now, not haha funny, the other kind. I met Darius at a mutual friend's birthday dinner in the spring of 2022. He was one of those people who seem immediately comfortable, not loud, not performing, just easy to be around. We talked for most of the night about nothing important, and I remember thinking, this person does not have an agenda. That's rare. I was right that he was easy to be around. I was very wrong about the agenda. We started dating officially about 6 weeks after that dinner. He was consistent in the way that you don't realize you've been craving until someone just does it. He texted when he said he would. He showed up when he said he would. He remembered things, my mom's name, my coworker drama, the specific type of green tea I liked. It felt like being chosen, and I don't mean that in a dramatic way. I just mean that when someone pays that kind of attention to you, it's hard not to read it as love. The social media thing came up maybe 3 months in. We were at brunch with my friend Kara and her boyfriend Marcus, and Marcus posted a photo of the 4 of us right there at the table. Tagged Kara immediately, looked at Darius kind of expectantly the way you do. Darius just smiled and kept eating. Later, walking to the car, I asked him if he wanted me to tag him in it. He said he wasn't really on Instagram like that, which was interesting because I had looked at his Instagram when we first started dating, and it was very much active. Gym photos, travel photos, group shots with his friends. All recent, nothing wrong with the account, just a regular person's regular Instagram. But I let it go because 3 months in you're still picking battles, or I was anyway. 4 months in, I posted a photo of us at a concert and tagged him. He didn't comment, didn't share it to his story, nothing. When I mentioned it, he said he just didn't like being tagged. It cluttered his notifications. I untagged in. I noticed he had turned off the setting that let people tag him at all. I remember sitting with my phone looking at that setting and feeling something I couldn't name at the time, not anger exactly. More like a small persistent question I kept changing the subject away from. Why would you do that? What exactly are you protecting? But here's the thing about Darius. He was so good at being present offline that I convinced myself the online stuff was genuinely irrelevant. He took me to his friend Marcus's cookout. He introduced me to his sister Jade and her kids. He brought me to his mother's house for Sunday dinner 3 times. Miss Wells made me a plate to take home. When someone's mother is sending you home with food, you stop asking why he never posts photos of you. You just stop. I told Kara once that I thought he was private, and she gave me a look I didn't examine closely enough. The first crack appeared about 14 months in. Darius and I had made plans for a Saturday. His cousin Terrell was having a birthday thing at a restaurant downtown, and Darius had told me about it weeks earlier, said he wanted me there. Said it was a good chance for me to meet more of his people. I bought a new dress. I confirmed with him Friday night. He said he'd pick me up at 7. At 6:45 Saturday, he texted saying Terrell had pushed the dinner back and it was going to run late and maybe it made more sense for me to just meet him after. I said, okay, that's fine. I'll meet you there. He said the reservation was under a different name and he'd come get me when they were wrapping up so we could go somewhere else after. I said, sure. Just text me the address and I'll come. He said it was a small family thing and he didn't want me sitting there alone waiting. I let it go. I told myself it was considerate. He didn't want me bored waiting for them to finish. He'd come get me after. It's fine. He came and got me at 10 p.m. We went to a bar and he was in a good mood and the night was fine and I went home telling myself I'd made something out of nothing. 2 months later, his cousin Terrell got engaged. There was a little gathering at someone's house in Concord to celebrate. Darius mentioned it, said it was casual. Just family and close friends. He didn't invite me. I didn't say anything at the time, but I noticed. After that, I started paying a different kind of attention, not obsessive, not going through his phone, more like I stopped looking away. Started letting myself see things I'd been reframing for over a year. He never posted photos of us. He'd turned off tagging. He'd redirected me away from his cousin's birthday dinner. He hadn't brought me to the engagement gathering even though I'd met his sister, met his mom, met half the same friends who were probably going to be there. There's a specific feeling that comes with the early stages of suspicion when you don't fully trust yourself yet. It's not confidence. It's more like low-grade nausea. You keep running the same logic and it keeps pointing somewhere you don't want to go. I talked to Kara. I laid out everything in order. She listened without interrupting, which is not like her, so I knew it wasn't good. She said, so you've met his family, but he doesn't want you at family events? When she said it out loud like that, it landed differently than it had in my own head. I said, there has to be an explanation. She said, there is one. You just don't want to hear it yet. I wasn't ready to hear it yet. I went home and told myself I'd bring it up with Darius directly. I'd been in enough therapy to know that you don't build a case in your head, you talk to the person. So that's what I decided to do. Except before I could have that conversation, the Saturday happened. I was in my apartment on a Sunday morning, scrolling through Instagram half awake with my coffee the way you do when you're not really looking at anything. Someone I didn't follow had popped up in my Explore page, a woman named Deja Washington. Her account was public. She had about 4,000 followers. Hair done beautifully in almost every photo, clearly someone who liked to document her life. The reason Instagram showed her to me was because 3 of my mutual connections had liked a photo she'd just posted. It was from a wedding. The photo was of a table at what looked like a nice venue. Flower centerpieces, tea lights, the whole thing. 4 people laughing at something. Deja was one of them. She was stunning, dark-skinned, natural hair pinned up, wearing a burgundy dress. Sitting next to her, in a navy blue suit I had never seen him wear, was Darius. I sat up. I looked at the caption, celebrating love, spending it with my favorite people. Couldn't think of a better way to spend the weekend. A row of heart emojis, then tags. She had tagged Darius's account, and in the comments, she had also tagged me, not my name, my sasslot. I stared at that tag for probably 30 seconds before I could process what I was looking at. She had tagged my account. Deja Washington, whoever she was, had tagged me in a photo with my boyfriend at a wedding I didn't know he'd attended. My first thought, and I'm embarrassed by this in retrospect, was that it was a mistake, that maybe I knew Deja from somewhere and she thought I'd want to see the photo, that this was a coincidence. My second thought came about 4 seconds later, and it was much clearer. She doesn't know I exist. I stayed on that photo for a long time. Darius's face, his hand was behind her chair, not touching her, but close, the kind of close that reads a very specific way. I looked at her other photos. She'd been dating someone for what looked like almost 2 years based on how far back the couple adjacent photos went. The guy was never tagged, never named. His face appeared in about 3 photos, always partially turned or cropped. I hadn't recognized him until now. I went back to her comment section on the wedding photo. Nobody had responded to the tag yet. I had 3 DM requests from strangers that morning, and I almost missed the 4th one because it came in while I was still on Deja's page. It was from an account I didn't recognize. When I opened it, the message was one line. I think we need to talk. I'm so sorry I tagged you. I thought I was tagging a different Simone, but now I've looked at your page and I think you should know something. I sat down on my kitchen floor. I don't know why I did that. My legs just made that decision. Her name was actually Deja. She'd realized what she'd done within minutes of posting. She'd looked at my page, seen enough to understand what she'd tagged me into, and instead of deleting the comment and pretending it hadn't happened, she'd messaged me. I don't know what kind of person does that. I do know it took something. I messaged her back. I said, "I'm looking at the photo right now. That's my boyfriend." She responded in under a minute. "I thought he might be. How long have you been together?" "About 2 years," I typed. There was a pause. Then "used to." I put my phone face to the kitchen floor and I just sat there for a minute. The apartment was quiet. My plants were in the window. Everything looked exactly the same as it had 20 minutes ago. 2 years. 2 years running simultaneously. Same timeline, more same man. I asked Deja if she wanted to get on a call. She said yes. She was in Raleigh, about 2.5 hours from Charlotte. We got on FaceTime at 11:15 that Sunday morning. 2 women who had never heard of each other the day before, both of us trying to hold our faces steady. She had met him at a work conference. He'd pursued her. He was consistent, attentive, remembered everything. He'd met her family. He'd never posted photos of her either. I almost laughed at that last part. She said she thought he was just private. I said I had thought that too. She said, "He told me he had an ex that was kind of obsessive, so he kept his life offline to keep the peace." I said he told me the same thing. We stayed on FaceTime for 2 hours. By the end, we had compared enough that the picture was clear. Darius had been running both relationships with real intention. He'd kept us far enough apart geographically, far enough apart socially, with enough overlap in his actual family network to maintain both without either of us bumping into the other. The cousin's birthday dinner he'd redirected me away from, Deja had been there. I'd found that out when she mentioned Terrell, and I'd said his name before she finished the sentence. The wedding in the photos was Terrell's engagement party turned last-minute courthouse ceremony, small thing, family only. I had not been invited because Deja had been there. It was a compartmentalization project. That's the only way I can describe it. He had built 2 real functioning relationships in 2 different cities, and he had managed the logistics with the same quiet consistency he'd applied to everything else. I asked Deja what she wanted to do. I want to be clear that I asked her, not the other way around. Whatever happened next, I wanted us to be deciding together. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I want him to have to say it out loud. I don't want him to be able to manage his way out of this." I said, "Same. We made a plan. Not a complicated one. We weren't going to show up at the same place dramatically. We weren't going to do anything for an audience. We just agreed that we would both call him that night, separately, and that neither of us would tell him the other already knew. We wanted to hear what he said on his own. I called Darius at 7 p.m. He picked up on the second ring, which he always did. "Hey, what are you up to?" "I saw a photo of you today," I said, "from a wedding." A pause, very short, but I heard it. "What photo?" "You were with a woman named Deja. She tagged me by accident." Another pause. This one was longer. "Simone." My voice came out steadier than I expected. "I already talked to her." The line went quiet for almost 10 full seconds. "I'm not going to yell," I told him. "I just want you to tell me how long." He said, "It's not what you're thinking." I said, "She told me about the conference where you met, 2.5 years ago, before us. Which means you were already with her when we started." He didn't answer that. "I met your mother, Darius." He exhaled slowly through his nose. I could hear it. "Simone, I care about you. I want you to know that. What I know is that you spent 2 years making sure I never appeared on your Instagram because she was following you. You turned off tagging. You moved me away from family events she was at. You rehearsed this," he said. "I never wanted to hurt you. You did not want to hurt me. You didn't want to get caught. Those are different things." He tried to talk. I let him. He said things about circumstances, about timing, about feelings being real even when the situation was complicated. It was a structured performance from someone who had clearly thought about what I listened all the way through. Then I said, "Deja's calling you in 20 minutes," and I hung up. I texted Deja, Told her to call him. She texted back 20 minutes later. Done. Then she sent a screenshot. She had called him, and within 30 seconds of the call starting, he had said, "Did Simone tell you to call me?" He'd tried to make it about us coordinating, about us being a problem he needed to manage. Deja had said one sentence to that, which was, "That's your takeaway from this?" And then she'd hung up. We talked again that night, Deja and I, for another hour. We weren't friends yet. I don't know if we'd become friends. But there was something between us that I didn't have a better word for than understanding. We had both trusted the same person completely, and he had handled that trust like a resource to be rationed. She had already moved his things, the few things he kept at her apartment in Raleigh, into a box by the door. I texted him the next morning and said we were done and that he didn't need to respond. He responded anyway. 4 paragraphs. I read the first line of each and then deleted it without finishing. The part I wasn't prepared for was the mutual friends. Because Darius had friends who knew me and knew Deja and had never said a word, I found this out slowly in stages over the following 2 weeks. Our mutual friend from the original birthday dinner, a guy named Preston, had apparently known for at least 8 months that Darius was seeing someone in Raleigh. He hadn't known about me specifically, he claimed, but he'd known there was someone consistent and he'd said nothing. Marcus, who had been at that brunch where the tagging thing first happened, knew Darius had been with Deja since before us. He said he'd assumed it had ended when Darius started bringing me around, that he hadn't wanted to get in the middle of it. I remember reading Marcus's text and just sitting with the phrase, "get in the middle of it." He didn't want to get in the middle of it. That's the calculation people make. They watch their friend carry on something like this, and they decide that loyalty to the friend outweighs the basic human courtesy of telling the woman involved that she's operating on false information. That's a choice. It looks like neutrality, but it isn't. I told Marcus that directly. I said, "You let me meet his mother. You were at brunch with us. You and Kara double dated with us 4 times, and you knew." He said he was sorry. I said, "I believe that you're sorry now. That's different from having done the right thing." I blocked him for a while after that. I don't know if that was the right call, but it was what I needed to do. Kara was the one who helped me through most of it. She'd had her suspicions and said nothing because she'd also been waiting for me to be ready. She said at some point that she'd been hoping she was wrong because being right meant watching me go through it. The thing about betrayal that I didn't expect was how structural it felt, like the frame of something had been removed. I was going back through 2 years in my head and re-seeing all of it from a different angle. The concert where he didn't reshare the post. The birthday dinner I got moved away from. The Sunday dinners at his mother's, which now I understood were when Deja was working her weekend shift at the hospital where she was a nurse. He'd arranged everything, not messily, not carelessly, with attention. He'd given both of us the version of himself that was easiest to love, and he'd managed the logistics so that neither version ever touched the other. What made it worse was that some of the things I'd loved about him were real. He was attentive because he was genuinely attentive. He was a good listener because he actually was one. The warmth wasn't manufactured. It was just aimed in 2 directions simultaneously, and he had decided that was acceptable. About 3 weeks after everything came out, I got a call from his sister Jade. I almost didn't pick up. Then I thought, I've held my tongue with enough people. Let me hear what this is. She called to apologize. She'd known. Not from the beginning, but for the last 8 or 9 months she'd figured it out. She'd asked Darius about it directly, and he'd told her it was complicated, and she'd backed off. She said, "I should have called you. I kept thinking it wasn't my place, and that's not a good enough reason. It wasn't my place to keep it from you either." I appreciated that she called. I told her that. I also told her that "it's not my place" was the sentence men used to protect each other from accountability, and that women around them tended to absorb the cost. She didn't disagree with me. The situation with Deja kept developing in ways I hadn't anticipated. About a month out, she called me to tell me that Darius had started reaching out to her again, not with an apology, with an explanation. He wanted to have a conversation about why he'd made the choices he had. He said he needed her to understand his perspective. She said he wasn't asking for forgiveness. He was asking to be understood. Like if I just got the full context, I'd see that this wasn't as bad as it looked. I knew exactly what she meant because I'd gotten a version of the same thing. The long text that didn't actually say sorry but said I want you to know where I was coming from. She'd told him she wasn't interested in the context. Good. The Instagram photo that had started everything was still up when I checked about a week later. Deja had deleted the tag of me from the comment. The photo itself was still there. Darius was still in it. She hadn't removed it, I think, because it was from a real day, a real event, a celebration for Terrell, and she wasn't going to erase it just because the person beside her turned out to be a lie. I understood that. I looked at his page once. About 6 weeks out, he had made his account private, all those photos of the gym and his travels and his friends locked away. The irony being that what he'd kept public hadn't mattered, and the thing he'd hidden was the only thing that did. I don't follow Deja anymore, but I checked her page once a few months later. She looked okay. Different haircut, a photo of a sunset from her porch. She'd posted something that I think was about all of it. Nothing explicit, just a line about trusting the version of yourself that knew something was wrong even before you had the evidence. I saved that one, actually. Not because I needed it, but because it was true. There's a thing people say when they hear stories like this, which is, how did you not know? And I understand the question. I've asked it about myself, but the honest answer is that not knowing wasn't stupidity. It was trust. And trust is supposed to make you not look. That's what it's for. Darius knew that. He factored it in. The person I've been thinking about most, strangely, isn't Darius. It's the woman who tagged me by accident. Deja didn't have to message me. She could have deleted the comment and blocked me and moved on. She could have protected herself in that moment instead of opening a conversation. That was going to hurt her too. But she messaged me within minutes before she even had the full picture. Because she understood that somewhere out there was a person who deserved to know. I don't know what her calculation was. Maybe she would have wanted someone to do it for her. Maybe she just made a decision fast before she could talk herself out of it. Either way, a stranger told me the truth when the person who said he loved me spent 2 years making sure I couldn't find it. Darius texted me one more time about 4 months ago. It was short. He said he hoped I was doing well and that he was still sorry about everything came out, how everything came out, not what he did, how it came out. I didn't respond. I didn't block him either. I just left it there. Read and unanswered, which felt like the right amount of something. The plant collection is still getting out of hand. I just got a monstera that I genuinely don't have room for. Kara came over last weekend and sat in my kitchen and asked how I was really doing, and I told her I was actually fine and meant it. Some weeks I think about it and some weeks I don't. What I know now that I didn't know then is that consistency isn't the same as honesty. Someone can show up for you on time, remember your green tea, meet your friends, send you home with their mother's cooking, and still be running something else entirely on the side. What you're watching isn't always what's happening. I got lucky. Not because the relationship ended, because of how it ended. Because someone pressed tag before she thought it through, and then sent a message instead of running away from what she'd done. There's something to be said for that. I think about it more than I probably should. The photo is still on her page last I checked. The one from the wedding with Darius in the Nazi suit, Terrell and his new wife laughing at the end of the table, Deja in burgundy, her head slightly turned, and somewhere in the comment section already deleted was my name, which was the most honest thing Darius ever put online.